This year commemorates the 30th anniversary of the Persian Gulf War. On August 2, 1990, Iraq and its leader Saddam Hussein invaded its neighboring country of Kuwait with more than 100,000 soldiers. The United Nations immediately condemned the Iraqi invasion and formed an international coalition comprising of 35 countries, which included Canada. This coalition, which was led by the United States and set up for the defense of Kuwait, represented the largest union of forces since World War II.
L'ONU a enjoint l'Irak de retirer ses troupes avant le 15 janvier. Sinon, elle autoriserait l'utilisation de tous les moyens nécessaires pour rétablir la paix dans la région. 5 jours après l'invasion, les pays membres de la coalition ont eu recours à un mélange de soutien militaire, de blocus maritime et de sanctions économiques pour faire pression sur l'Irak afin qu'il se retire. Ce renforcement militaire est connu sous le nom d'opération Desert Shield.
On August 10th, 8 days after the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, the Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney announced that it would offer military support to coalition forces. The Canadian Armed Forces' participation in the Gulf War was named Operation Friction. Canada's main military contribution came in the form of warships and aircraft.
2 semaines plus tard, les forces armées canadiennes ont envoyé les navires de guerre NCSM, Terre Nova, Athabascan et Protecteur dans le Golfe Persique. Un mois plus tard, les premiers chasseurs à réaction CF-18 canadienne sont arrivés au Moyen-Orient. En tout, plus de 4000 soldats canadiens ont participé à la guerre du Golfe. Despite the blockades and sanctions, Iraq refused to withdraw from Kuwait. A day after the January 15th deadline, the UN sent the coalition forces into the region, beginning the largest air campaign in military history. This phase of the conflict was known as Desert Storm.
During Desert Storm, the coalition air force, including Canadian CF-18s, targeted Iraqi ships, aircraft, communications, weapons facilities, and infrastructure. Canada's warships took on various roles. The HMCS Terra Nova and Athabascan protected coalition ships further away from the fighting, and the HMCS Protector transported supplies and refueled other vessels.
On February 24, 1991, the coalition launched a major ground campaign. Iraqi forces were quickly overwhelmed and in fewer than 5 days were pushed out of Kuwait and back into Iraqi territory. As Iraqi forces retreated, they set hundreds of Kuwait oil wells on fire. These fires continued to burn for 9 months. On February 28, 1991, US President George H.W. Bush declared a ceasefire to end military hostilities, and a week later, Iraq accepted the ceasefire terms. Iraq agreed to recognize Kuwait's sovereignty and promised to destroy its weapons of mass destruction, which included nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. In the end, Kuwait was liberated.
The facts of the war only tell part of the story. The acts of courage and sacrifices made by our military during and after the war must be acknowledged, honored, and remembered. Here at Loyola, we remember.
Nous nous souvenons des préoccupations et des inquiétudes de l'adjudant canadien Bruce Barnes et d'autres soldats canadiens qui ont fait partie des premières troupes à être envoyées au Moyen-Orient. Ils pensaient ne jamais revenir, car les armes dont disposait l'Irak étaient une grande source d'incertitude. À ce moment-là, les bulletins de nouvelles ne parlaient que des armes chimiques de Saddam Hussein.
We remember how perilous and stressful a place the Persian Gulf was. The worries of enemy attacks, Scud missiles, landmines, and the ever-present threat of biological and chemical warfare took a toll on the mental and physical well-being of some of those who serve. These everlasting experiences affected many veterans, like Petty Officer Second Class Richard Austin, who served aboard the Athabascan, who heard the horrific clang of triggering a mine. His thoughts turned immediately to his sons as he braced for impact of an explosion which miraculously never occurred. Or the veterans who served on air bases, scarred by the ear-piercing sound of blaring sirens, accompanied by stifling smoke and the blinding exhaust flashes of Patriot and Scud missiles lighting up the night sky, or how difficult it was to breathe from all the soot in the air caused by oil fires, which turned broad daylight into night. The constant worry, little sleep, and high tension did damage to many of those who served. We remember the many men and women who suffer from chronic fatigue, muscular pain, respiratory issues, and PTSD due to the war in the desert.
Nous nous souvenons du courage de l'équipage du destroyer NCSM Athabascan qui a aidé le USS Princeton, un navire de guerre américain gravement endommagé par des mines irakiennes. Le destroyer a escorté le USS Princeton sur des centaines de kilomètres d'eau dangereuse et navigué dans des champs de mines ennemis, ce qui a rendu la situation extrêmement tendue. Après 3 jours intenses, l'Athabascan a réussi à extraire le navire de guerre américain du champ de mines en toute sécurité. La mission a été un succès.
We remember our mothers, daughters, and wives who served in the Gulf War. Women like retired Sergeant Marion Kelly, who was deployed to the Golden Heights, where she was part of the European supply chain, or Master Corporal Bettina Fuchs, who drove 50,000-liter water tankers to unsafe areas, or Lieutenant Colonel Susan Baharia, Canada's first female intelligence officer, who provided NATO generals with timely intelligence on Saddam Hussein's capabilities, actions, and intentions. And all of the other female Canadian armed forces, as the Gulf War marked the first conflict where Canadian women served in combat roles. During this conflict, women served in the roles that put them directly in the line of fire. Canadian women proved themselves during the Gulf War, opening the door to future generations of female soldiers.
We remember that even in times of war and great stress, our Canadian values to care for all people shines through our military. For example, the Canadian Military Corps building and operating a field hospital near the Kuwait border, which treated the injured of both Iraqi and coalition soldiers. And we remember Canada's post-war efforts, like being part of the UN peacekeeping mission, and the brave veterans who helped remove mines and rebuild the war-torn area of the Persian Gulf.
Most importantly, we remember that Canada was part of the Gulf War, and that we are grateful for the sacrifices made by our men and women for their part for the protection of peace and freedom worldwide. Today, on the 6th day of Remembrance, we here at Loyola High School, along with all citizens across Canada, remember nos anciens combattants de la guerre du Golfe.